Welcome to F-Bomb Friday. I'm your host, Tracy Preston, along with my husband, Todd. Hey, hun.
Hey, baby.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Let's hit it. There are two torch lakes in Michigan. One sits in the Upper Peninsula, and the other lies in the northern Lower Peninsula near Traverse City. An impossibly blue, crystal clear stretch of water so beautiful, people call it the Caribbean of the North. That is the torch lake this story belongs to. The postcard lake, the vacation lake, paradise lake. But ask around long enough, especially among the locals who have spent their whole lives near that water, and eventually someone will mention the monster. Usually quietly, usually with a nervous little laugh. Because for decades, strange stories have drifted around Torch Lake camps, cottages, marinas, and campfires. Stories about something large moving beneath the surface, something old, something hidden under all that beautiful blue water. And if you grew up around northern Michigan in the 1960s or 70s, there is a chance you heard the story from a camp counselor late at night when the fire had burned low, when the lake had gone black. And according to generations of campers, those counselors didn't always tell it like a joke. Some swore it was true. Some even sang about it. So today on F-Bomb Friday, we descend into one of Michigan's strangest lake legends. A story passed from counselor to camper, from cottage to cottage, and from summer to summer. A creature that may have been nothing more than a campfire tale, or something terrifying waiting beneath more than 300 feet of crystal clear water. Today we're talking about the Torch Lake Monster. Now, Torch Lake is Michigan's longest inland lake. It stretches for roughly 19 miles and drops to depths of more than 300 feet. Its story began thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, when glaciers carved and shaped the land that would become northern Michigan. And that famous blue-green water, the color that makes Torch Lake look almost unreal in photographs. And that comes from calcium-rich marl sediment of the lake bed, reflecting sunlight back through the clear water. But long before summer cottages, boats, sandbars, and vacation photos, the lake had another name. The Ojibwe called it Wagwaganing, meaning the place of torches. That name came from the practice of using birch bark torches at night to draw whitefish and trout toward the surface where they could be speared or netted. Later, European settlers saw those lights moving across the water and called it Torch Light Lake. Now, over time, the name was shortened, Torch Lake. A beautiful name for a beautiful place. But like so many beautiful places in Michigan, Torch Lake has more than one story. And one of those stories may have started or at least survived at summer camp. Camp Hiawatha, founded by the YMCA in 1904, became part of Torch Lake's long camp history. And generations later, that camp culture, cabins, counselors, campfires, lake swims, and late night stories would help carry the legend of the Torch Lake Monster forward. Fast forward to the 1960s. Long before social media, long before podcasts, long before internet creepypastas could travel around the world overnight. Back then, legends survived in a different way. They were carried by camp counselors, and northern Michigan summer camps were perfect places for folklore to grow. Teenagers packed into cabins deep in the woods, no city lights, cold lake water, fog drifting between the trees at night, and counselors who knew exactly how to tell a story when the fire burned low. Now, according to camp lore, the Torch Lake monster myth was shaped by counselor Dave Foley and later immortalized in a camp song by fellow counselor Bob Thurston. And throughout the 1960s and 70s, campers around the Torch Lake region reportedly heard different versions of the same terrifying story. Something lived in the lake. Not just big fish, not just this shadow under the water, but a creature described as enormous, serpentine, and strangely intelligent. The details changed depending on who was telling it. Sometimes it had fins, sometimes scales, sometimes a cat-like head rising out of the water. But one detail stayed with people: the eyes. One blue, one brown. It was such a strange, unsettling detail that campers remembered it decades later because it sounded too specific to feel casual, too bizarre to feel like a throwaway campfire invention. And according to many former campers, the counselors didn't tell the stories like fantasy. They told it like local history, like something people around Torch Lake had whispered about for generations. And once kids heard that story, the lake changed. Every ripple looked suspicious. Every late night swim became a dare. Every unexplained splash outside the cabin sounded bigger than it should. That's how legends take root. Not just in the woods, not just beside deep water, but inside a child's imagination where fear can grow teeth. Now, this is where the Torch Lake monster legend becomes truly unique, because unlike many cryptid stories, this one had a song, an actual camp song, passed from counselor to camper, from one summer to the next. Depending on who remembers it, the lyrics changed a little over the years. Different cabins, different counselors, different versions. But the warning stayed the same. Don't go into Torch Lake because something is waiting. By daylight, the song was probably playful, the kind of goofy campfire tune kids could laugh about while roasting marshmallows or sitting on a dock with wet towels wrapped around their shoulders. But at night, after the fire burned down. After the counselors finished telling the story, that same little song could turn cold, especially if someone sang it softly across the water. Former campers remembered versions that mentioned giant ripples on the lake, glowing eyes, a long neck raising from the surface, and warnings not to swim alone. And honestly, that might be what made the legend last, because stories can fade, details can blur, but songs, those stay in your mind. They get repeated year after year until eventually people stop remembering where the legend began. They only remember how it felt. And for generations of northern Michigan campers, the Torch Lake monster felt very real. Descriptions of the Torch Lake monster changed over the decades, but certain details kept resurfacing. A long body, dark coloration, movement that didn't quite look like a fish. People described it as gliding through the water rather than swimming. It was too smooth, too deliberate, too aware. Some stories described humps breaking the surface one after another, like a serpent undulating just beneath the lake. Others mentioned a long tail slipping down into deeper water before anyone could get a closer look. But the head was what disturbed people most. According to camp legends and local retellings, the creature's head looked strangely mammalian, almost cat-like. And then there were the eyes, mismatched. One blue, one brown. And that detail became the signature of the legend because it felt almost too strange to ignore, too specific, too personal, like something a witness would remember because they couldn't forget it. Now, over time, the eye colors became part of the creature's identity. Some versions claimed they glowed differently under moonlight. Others said people only noticed the colors when the monster surfaced close to boats. And one local rumor told of a fisherman who saw the creature before dawn, staring at him from shallow water, half submerged, completely still, watching. One blue eye, one brown eye, and then it was gone. No splash, no sound, just a dark shape sinking back beneath the lake. Torch Lake already feels eerie under the right conditions. By day, it's almost impossibly beautiful. It's clear and blue and bright, the kind of water that looks more tropical than Michigan. But at night, everything changes. That famous turquoise color disappears, and the lake turns black. And because the water is so clear and so deep, moonlight can play tricks across the surface. Shadows will stretch, reflections will bend. Something ordinary like a wave, a fish, a floating branch can suddenly look much larger than it is. And one creepy detail that keeps resurfacing in local storytelling is the idea that Torch Lake is bottomless. Of course, it isn't. But when you're standing near a lake that drops more than 300 feet in places, it is easy to understand how that rumor survives. There are sections where the bottom seems to vanish beneath you, places where the light gives out and the blue fades into darkness. And darkness does strange things to the human mind, especially over water. Former campers have described hearing unexplained splashing after curfew. Others remembered counselors pointing flashlights across the lake during the monster story, pretending they saw something moving offshore. Was that cruel? Maybe a little. Was it effective? Absolutely. Because once your imagination wakes up beside deep water, every sound changes. Docks creak, fish break the surface, waves slap against boats, loons cry across the lake in voices that almost sound human. And sometimes the water becomes so still that even the smallest ripple feels enormous. Perfect conditions for a monster. Almost every version of the Torch Lake monster legend includes some kind of boating encounter. One of the most repeated versions takes place sometime in the early 1970s. The story goes that a group of teenagers slipped away from camp late at night and took a small boat out onto the lake. There were no adults, no lights, just moonlight on black water. At first, they joked about the monster because that's what teenagers do when they're trying to convince each other they are not scared. Then they heard something beside the boat. Not a splash exactly, more like movement. Slow, heavy, close. One of them shined a flashlight toward the sound, and that's when they saw it. A shape beneath the water. Long, dark, too large to be a normal fish. The beam moved across the surface, and for 1 second, it caught an eye. Blue. Then another eye surfaced near it. Brown. The creature rose just enough for them to see part of its head before slipping beneath the boat. And then something hit the underside. Hard enough to rock the boat. Hard enough to turn laughter into screaming. The teenagers raced back to shore, and according to the local retellings, none of them ever laughed about the Torch Lake monster again. Now, is that story true? There's no way to prove it, but folklore doesn't always survive because it can be proven. Sometimes it survives because it scares people badly enough that they keep telling it. And if you were a camper sitting beside that lake at night, already imagining something enormous moving beneath the surface, this story would do exactly what it was meant to do. And by the late 1970s, the Torch Lake monster had become more than a campfire story. At least in some camp communities and among certain lake residents, it had turned into a genuine regional legend. Kids carried the story home. Counselors passed it down to younger staff. Families repeated it at cottages, on docks, around bonfires, and in boats rocking gently against the shoreline after dark. And the more the story spread, the more the creature changed. Some said it was prehistoric, something left behind in the deep water, surviving where no one thought to look. Others believed it was a giant mutated fish. A few connected it to older Great Lakes serpent legends, the kind of stories that have always lived around deep water and dangerous weather. Then came the darker versions. stories that said the monster appeared before storms, that it followed lone swimmers, that it surfaced near drownings. No, none of those claims have ever been proven, but folklore rarely stays harmless forever. The fear adds details. Retellings sharpen the teeth. And over time, the Torch Lake monster became something more unsettling than a simple lake serpent. Because now people weren't just afraid of seeing it, they were afraid it might see them first. Now, scientifically speaking, there is no evidence of an unknown giant creature living in Torch Lake. But that doesn't mean there aren't explanations worth considering. Large fish can look prehistoric in low light. Sturgeon, in particular, have that ancient, almost armored appearance, the kind of shape that can make your brain hesitate before it decides what it's seeing. Northern Michigan waters are also home to fish large enough to startle people, especially if they surface near a boat or move beneath clear water at night. Then there's the lake itself. Torch Lake is deep, clear, reflective, and under the wrong conditions, that clarity can become deceptive. A branch drifting beneath the surface can look alive. A wake can stretch into something serpentine. A shadow can seem to move with purpose. And moonlight on calm water can turn an ordinary shape into something your imagination is more than willing to finish. But skeptics will have one problem with the Torch Lake monster legend: the consistency. Because while the details shifted over time, certain features kept coming back. A long serpent body, a strange head, behavior that felt intelligent, and those mismatched eyes. That final detail is what makes the story stick, specifically gives folklore its claws. Once a detail like that enters a legend, it becomes almost impossible to separate invention from memory. Did one counselor create the blue eye and brown eye decades ago? Maybe. Did someone actually claim to see them? Possibly. But once that image moved through camps and cabins and cottages and campfire songs, the torch monster became almost impossible to kill. The legend of the Torch Lake monster survived because Torch Lake itself feels mysterious. And sometimes beautiful places make the best hiding places because beauty lowers your guard. By day, Torch Lake invites you in. The water glows blue. Boats skim across the surface. Families swim and laugh and float and take pictures in a place that looks almost too perfect to be real. But at night, that same lake becomes something else. The color disappears, the depth returns, and suddenly, all that beauty feels like a cover. Humans have always feared deep water. We fear what we cannot see beneath us. We fear the dark shape under the surface, the movement just outside the beam of a flashlight, the open black space below our feet. And lakes carry a very specific kind of fear. Unlike oceans, they feel contained, still and silent, closed off from the rest of the world, like they could keep a secret forever. That may be why nearly every culture has created water monsters, like serpents and dragons and lake spirits and underwater guardians, things that rise from the deep when people get too close. The Torch Lake monster is northern Michigan's version of that old fear, a beautiful lake, campfire song, a warning whispered between generations, and somewhere beneath it all, the image of mismatched eyes staring up from the black water. Maybe the Torch Lake monster never existed. Maybe it was only a campfire legend, a story passed from one counselor to the next, from one cabin to another, from cottage porches to boat docks, from summer to summer, until no one could quite remember where it began. Maybe it was created to scare kids before bed. A spooky northern Michigan tradition wrapped in lake water, old songs, and nervous laughter. But legends do not survive for decades unless something about them feels real. And for years, people around Torch Lake swore they saw something large moving beneath the surface, something long and dark, something that didn't swim like a fish, something that watched. Maybe the blue eye and brown eye were invented by a storyteller sometime in the 1960s, or maybe someone really did see them. So if you ever find yourself near Torch Lake after dark, when the boats are gone, when the cottages go quiet, when the famous blue water turns black, listen carefully, because somewhere beyond the last dock light, out where the lake drops deep, you just might hear an old camp song drifting across the water. Soft little warning carried in the night air. Do not go in. Not alone. Not tonight. Well, I gotta tell you, hon, I've been in a few lakes in Michigan, such as Duck Lake. Now, it's not as pretty as Torch Lake, but Duck Lake, you can't really see through it. It's kind of murky.
Right.
And I've had something long and slithery wipe my leg. It scared the shit out of me. So Torch Lake, super clear, super pretty, but I don't go in the water at night.
Well, I used to go swimming all the time at night up in Lily Lake in Harrison.
No, thank you.
But the added creepiness, the added fear to this is because Torch Lake is so beautiful and so clear, but it's so deep. And there's actually spots where you just cannot see light anymore. So
but you gotta be out there pretty far then.
Well, I think it depends on where you're at, because there is sudden drop-offs where it just goes down deep.
I've never been.
Yeah, and then there's the sandbars, which are popular. People, like to hang out there and party and stuff, but as shallow as it is in spots, it's just as deep in spots. It's crazy.
Now, I've definitely seen pictures. I've never been to Torch Lake, either of them. And P.S., I didn't know there were two.
Yeah.
So the one in the Lower Peninsula, I have friends who've been there, and I've seen pictures, and it looks like the Caribbean.
It does.
It's spectacular.
Bright turquoise blue waters. Yes, it's very pretty. And, Michigan is chock full of water creatures and monsters. And one of the things about Torch Lake is it does host a lot of very large fish. I've heard stories of up to 50-pound fish.
Like what?
Like sturgeon and trout and, all these fish that have all this room to roam and just really grow. So
there must not be a lot of fishing in Torch Lake.
Well, there's plenty of fish for that Torch Lake monster to eat. You should leave the people alone.
Right. I used to scuba dive when I lived in Florida, and people were always like, hey, you want to do a night dive? Hell no, I don't want to do a night dive.
Yeah.
I'm not going in the water at night.
Yeah. It'd behoove you not to.
No, it's dark. I want to see.
Now, you and I, we both went to the same middle school camp. We went to Camp Noonday. I remember the camp counselors trying to scare us with stories. Did your camp counselors do that too?
No, our camp counselors sucked.
Oh yeah, the guys had us going, man. We were on the edge of our bunks just listening to this story, and then one of our teachers, Mr. Hunt, dressed up in a werewolf costume and came up and started banging on the windows. We were scared. I, of course, I had to act cool. I was all tough. I was ready to go, but deep down, yeah, I had the EBGBs, and I was a little terrified.
It was all an act.
Yeah. So it's a tradition. I think it's kind of a cruel but entertaining.
But you gotta scare the kids.
Tradition. You gotta scare the kids.
That would, I would really like to be a camp counselor.
Yeah.
For that very reason. Well, that's a great story, hon.
Thank you.
You want to sign us out?
I sure do. You better lock your doors. You better lock your windows. And you might want to check under your bed.
Your bunk bed.
Your bunk bed.
And P.S. Don't go swimming at night.
Do not go in the water at night.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, and we will see you again on Malice Monday.
We will see you on Monday.